Hello everyone. This is the 9th part of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Chapter 28, An Unexpected Meeting Part 2. General Point of View. An alert appeared on the back computer's screen. Batman clicked on it and narrowed his eyes. Someone had used the Zeta tubes in the cave to go to a non-prioritized zone, Los Angeles. He accessed the surveillance footage to find out who it was while having his suspicions already. Maelstrom. The Dark Knight found he was right on the mark when he saw Aden dressed in a baggy hoodie use the Zeta tubes moments after Artemis did the same and leave for Gotham. The Dark Knight could already guess why Aden had decided to go to LA. Truth be told, he'd expected it. Sooner or later, the displaced teen would feel the urge for some semblance of familiarity, and going to his city of origin despite it being just an alternate of the real Los Angeles would provide it. Batman decided to take a wait-and-see approach. Something he had been doing a lot these days. He just hoped that he would get the answers he was looking for soon. As the world's greatest detective, it bothered him that he didn't have all the cards. Aden's point of view. I cracked my knuckles as my first match began. The floor was sleek with blood as mentioned earlier, and as I stepped forward, a scanning device washed over me to test for the metahuman gene. Call it bloody, ruthless and dangerous, but the match executives tried to make it fair. I eyed the device with a critical eye. It wasn't sleek like LexCorp equipment, and neither was it efficiently made like Wayne Tech products either. If anything, it looked constructed out of poor materials. Like a prop you would expect from a 80s sci-fi B-movie. A smile split my face into two, clearly the work of a genius. Building something that could read deep into a target's body and see if they have the metagene in their D.N. wasn't something just anyone could do. Regarding the poor make of the whole thing, it meant that that person was severely lacking in funding. That meant they could be recruited. The device beeped an all clear and let me through. I didn't have a metagene and I wasn't an alien, so it made sense I had been let through. Now if the device worked by studying the density of a target's muscle tissues or esoteric energy readings, that might have been a problem. I am going to break your bones and suck the marrow in them. My first opponent threatened, much to the uproar of the crowd. These people loved mayhem and were looking forward to one of us breaking the other. I took a second to study him. He was dressed in ripped jeans that had poorly washed bloodstains on them. Showing one, he had a poor sense of hygiene, and two, this wasn't his first rodeo. His teeth were serrated, making his ugly face look even more menacing. Couple that with his crooked nose and you get a 6'6" behemoth who literally ate people for breakfast, based on his choice of words. I cracked my neck and unzipped the hood, leaving me in a black t-shirt, a matching pair of shorts and my mask that I had designed to look really cool. It had webs crossing its length in a Spider-Man suit theme. There was a chime and the match officially begun. Instantly, my whole demeanor changed. There was no backing down from this fight, and I couldn't afford to get blindsided by not taking it seriously. The monster, believe it or not that was his moniker, advanced towards me with his hands apart and his tongue licking his serrated teeth. Someone else would have taken him for a joke, but the fact that he had survived countless fights and was in this establishment that catered for the rich and powerful showed there was more to it. I studied him again, while we circled each other. His foot shifted to the front slightly and there. I saw it, his stance was stable and his back muscles were probably ready to push him forward in great momentum. This guy was trained. And sure enough, I saw a fast punch headed towards my belly. An attack that anyone else except for someone good would have failed to block. I parried the blow to the side, pulled in close and chopped my palm onto his neck, cutting the blood flow to his brain. He stumbled back and took a knee to the blood-soaked floor. I didn't grant him any respite and my leg whipped out, catching him right on the side of the head with my foot and sending him to the ground. The monster passed out. There was a brief silence before the crowd went crazy. Kill. 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 I looked around in great surprise. Are they serious? Turning my attention to my opponent, I found him unconscious and helpless on the floor. How can they ask me to do something so deplorable? I raised my hand and prompted them to keep quiet. Once the crowd of hundreds of people was silent, I spoke up. I do not kill. Will not kill. Boo. Boo. Shit. Fuck you. A litany of insults was thrown my way as I left the cage. My surprise turned into anger. How many people have died here due to these people? It was fine with me if you break bones, but killing those who were out of the fight or didn't deserve it rubbed me the wrong way. Of course I knew I would have to kill eventually. The changes I wanted to bring about couldn't be done without a few truly evil villains dying. But senseless killing wasn't something I would condone. That's why when the booing and cries of "kill" didn't end, I decided on something someone else would call hypocritical. I was going to shut down this whole thing and steal their money. Unknown point of view. Maze dear, you feel that? The stench of a greedy little pig, so far away from home. A tall and very handsome man dressed in a tuxedo said to his companion. The man had black wings unfurled behind his back and a majestic aura surrounding his form. His companion on the other hand was a devilishly hot female. She was dressed in all leather and had a glint of menace and killer charm glowing in her eyes. She cocked her head to the side while looking down at the Sunset Bloom nightclub in a little interest. They were both standing on the roof of the building opposite the establishment. I've always wondered where that piece of hellhound crap, Galil, was. I was even looking forward to hunting him down and slowly slicing the skin from his bones. She stated while sliding her finger along the length of the sharp-looking dagger. The handsome man laughed. You're still mad at him even after 3 millennia, I see. He commented while sparing his servant/former lover/best friend a glance. Mazikeen snorted. Isn't it the same for you, Lucifer? He abandoned his post. The now-named gentleman shrugged his shoulders and answered smoothly. It's a matter of principle. You, on the other hand, are making it personal. This is the human world, Maze. I urge you to exercise a little bit of restraint. We don't want the same debacle with Hitler now, do we? Maze rolled her eyes. Oh please, just because I gutted him and stringed him up by his entrails, you all can't seem to forget that, can you? Maze. I'm the bloody devil and I understand eternal damnation and suffering, but that was just brutal. Maze spared him a smile. But you loved it. Lucifer sighed and matched the devilish smirk on his partner's face. I did. That said, I don't want to announce our presence too early. Otherwise, Father might decide to send one of my brothers to come and run interference before I corrupt his precious pet project. Not that they need any corrupting, free will has done that splendidly. Fine. You're no fun today. Woke up on the wrong side of bed? Maze teased, to which he ignored and focused his attention on the nightclub before him. They would need a base of operations, and a place such as this, filled with debauchery and the smell of sin, was fitting for him, he supposed. The fact that a former resident of hell, a demon by the name Galil who had escaped hell a few millennia ago, was the owner just sweetened the deal. Hey Maze, what do you say we crash a party? I thought you'd never ask. Galil is mine. Aden's point of view. I made my way towards the locker room. I didn't make eye contact with anyone and opened the door to the bathroom. I looked at myself on the mirror of the dimly lit room and breathed out. This wasn't going the way I thought it would. I couldn't stomach the thought of going back onto that ring again. Something was messed up in this place. It was clear. Much clearer now. The air itself was more oppressive inside this whole establishment than outside. I couldn't quite put a finger on it, but a malevolent aura pervaded the whole place. I wasn't unsure about my decision to shut this place down now. In fact, how about I start with the couple of idiots coming my way? The door to the bathroom opened and in walked Dumb and Dumber. 2 generic men dressed in tight black shirts and trousers. They weren't normal either. A barely detectable scent of blood clung to them in a miasma that just screamed wrong. Is it a requirement for you to be big, ugly, and dumb to work here? I asked them, opening the tap and lightly washing my hands. My face scrunched up in distaste. Even the water was kind of murky. The first of the men ran his eyes up and down my form, a sickening and hungry smile appeared on his face as he started to talk. "You're coming with us. The boss wants to see you. See what's behind the mask. Maybe understand what makes you think you're better than the rest and why you won't kill the boss." That was, actually, great. If I could get to him, then I could take this whole thing down starting from the top. I turned to Dumb and Dumber. "Okay, what are we waiting for then? Let's go." Chapter 29, An Unexpected Meeting Part 3. Aden's Point of View. I followed one of the two men out of the washroom silently. The other one was behind me to make sure I didn't decide to run. Which would have been the smart thing to do had I known what was to come. Unfortunately, I didn't. We weaved through throngs of people before using the stairs to go up to the V.I.P viewing section. A few people pointed at me in distaste while the majority were focused on the fight happening between two women in the cage. One of them looked like a wrestler while the other moved with the grace of a cat. I narrowed my eyes. I could recognize the League of Shadows training in her. Interesting. Dumber pushed my shoulder from the back. "Keep moving before I drag you there by your balls." His rancid breath made me scrunch up my nose in distaste. There's a little something called personal space, dickhead. My elbow shot backwards and caught him on the solar plexus. Dumber wheezed in pain and stepped back but remained standing, which greatly shocked me. The blow wasn't at full power, but still. Anyone else would have already passed out. Yet he remained standing, showing that he was strong, or better yet, abnormal, just as I had suspected. A gun dug onto the skin above my kidney. I stared at the goon who had been ahead of me. "You think you're hotshot? Don't try that again if you know what's good for you." He intimidated me. Wow, a lackey that can snark back. I've seen it all now. Dumb used the gun to push me towards the door without commenting. Got to give it to him, he was very patient. Two guards were standing on the sides of the door, looking intimidating and dangerous. One of the two men leading me stepped up. "Lord Galil requested to see this man." The guards didn't comment but merely opened the door for me. Instantly, the smell of rotten eggs, blood and sulfur wafted out, making me stiffen and go on guard. "Move. I won't tell you again." I stepped through with Dumb following closer to me and found myself in a very classy room. The furniture probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and a huge TV screen was mounted on the wall, showing the fights happening on the ring in real time. The room had a balcony where someone could actually look down and see the fight from up here. No mistaking it, this guy was the boss indeed. I took time to study the man and found him to be less than impressive. He was fat. His huge belly protruding out of the red robe he wore. His nails were clean at least, but his teeth were yellowed and rotten. He seemed to stand at just below 6 feet with matted black hair and pale skin. On the table before him was a white substance and a rolled-up dollar bill. One of the men pulled me down to a kneeling position like he and his partner to show respect, but I stayed upright, not budging an inch. "Kneel, you fucking idiot." The gun dug into my side some more, but I showed no intention of following the order. Galil raised up a hand and the goon went silent after muttering an apology. Galil ignored us, using the dollar bill to snort the cocaine on the table. Meanwhile, I looked around some more and saw a peculiar painting with a few scuff marks on the sides of the wall it was placed on and muttered, "Bingo. I'd found the safe." "You are not normal." Galil's voice was gruff and deeper than I had expected. He leveled a cold stare at me and motioned for the seat opposite him on the other side of the table. I went forward, pulled out the chair and sat on it before crossing my hands on my chest. "Neither are you." Galil's eyes widened minutely. "Interesting." Then he added with a wave of his hand. "Leave us." The guy I had hit with my elbow earlier didn't seem to like the sound of that. He stared at me with fury in his eyes. "Master, I beg of you to let me kill him after you're done." His partner looked suddenly afraid as he moved a bit further away from him. "You fool." He whispered low, but just enough for my superior senses to pick up. You dare to defy me? The air in the room changed. Faster than I could react to, a blood-red circle manifested on the floor below the guy, who had now just realized he'd fucked up and flashed yellow. Before he had the chance to do anything, an explosion of fire swallowed him fully. A blackened skeleton fell to the ground and shattered into ash. My hands tightened on the arm rest while I calmly tried to still my beating heart. That fire, whatever it was hot. It was hot enough that I felt I wouldn't survive having my whole body exposed to it despite my toughened skin. Maybe I was a little bit too hasty coming here. Hellfire. He explained, a little something I brought with me from home. He smiled slowly, waiting to see my reaction. MMH. I hummed, denying him a glimpse into my real thoughts. Inwardly, though, my mind was in turmoil at the revelation. So this guy was a demon. Or at least claiming be one. This world was much, much stranger than I thought it would be. Galil snapped his finger. Get our guest a drink. The special kind. He ordered while staring at me. This time his look changed to a disturbingly greedy one. Dum looked unsure for a bit, but after remembering the death of Dummer, he hurried up to follow his master's orders, probably wary of meeting the same fate as his partner. I don't believe I have properly introduced myself. I'm Galil, businessman extraordinary, collector of fine specimens and an amicable boss. I spared a glance at the blackened layer of soot at the irony of his statement. You forgot pyromaniac. He laughed at my words. You're funny. I like that. However, you need to know when to shut your mouth, brat. A heavy feeling fell upon my shoulders. It felt like telekinesis or some kind of energy, maybe magic. It wasn't too far-fetched based on the fact he just fried a man to ashes. Fortunately, it wasn't anything too oppressive, but I still groaned and sank into my seat all the same. I didn't want him to know I could shrug off his power with barely any effort. This had turned from a simple robbery into something else. I needed to know if I was looking at a full-scale demon invasion and why the Justice League or other affiliated heroes didn't know about what was going on here. Who are you? I bit out. Galil rose up from his seat just as a goblet of a black substance was placed before me. The better question would be what I am. And that my soon-to-be underling is an opportunist. He went over to the balcony overlooking the fight happening downstairs. Human souls are infinite batteries of energy. That's why most of my kind covet them. However, what they all fail to see is the vitality you all possess. Not much when compared to other species, but humanity has them all beat on two fronts. 1. Your resilience in the face of dire straits makes your life force undergo a qualitative change, and 2. The fact that you fuck and breed like rabbits. The demon started laughing uproariously. That gives me an endless resource of mortal life force. Life force that I can then refine and turn into power. Power that I can then use to pay back. He stopped suddenly. That's none of your concern. No, you are here for something a bit more different. I strained, showing him that I was still under the effects of his power. You see, I lack talented fighters. Effective ones, in fact. Ever since the 20th century picked up with industrial and telecommunications growth, hiding my involvement in large-scale human deaths has become a rather tedious affair. These days, underground fight rings like these are the only way I can act without drawing attention from the supernatural side of things. He came over to my seat and sat on the table. Magicians are pesky little shits who poke their noses where they don't belong. Superheroes are no better either. So take this as an interview. I can sense a strength in you. Your life force is much greater than any human I've ever seen before. With you, I won't have to fear their interference, and then I can act freely. You are my investment. He held my chin and turned me forcefully towards him. The goblet containing the black liquid appeared on his other hand. This will elevate you to the level needed to take on anyone. Even the big blue Boy Scout. He finished happily. I still had my reservations, but this was basically a free power-up. But first, I needed to know what it was. What is it? I asked awkwardly, my jaw still in his hand. Hush. My minion, and drink up. Wait. He brought the goblet up to my mouth, but the look of anticipation on his face changed when my hand came up and held his wrist. He cried out as I squeezed it painfully. My other hand took the goblet from him and placed it on the table. The skin of his left hand flaked off to reveal a scaly arm and huge claws. He swiped the dangerous-looking claws towards me, but a quick tap on the elbow and the hand went slack, uselessly hanging from his body. Who are you? Galil shouted, fear coloring his voice. I sneered at him. First of all, you talk too much. Secondly, I said, wait, you idiot. You were going to force-feed me some shitty-looking liquid without even explaining what it was. I increased the pressure on his palm, making him cry out some more. Do you know who I am? I landed a slap on his jaw, careful not to dislocate it for my next question, but hard enough to show I wasn't playing around. What's that liquid made of? He stared me in defiance and started laughing. I have been the cause of the fall of so many civilizations, brat. You think you can threaten me to say anything? The door banged open and a group of guards appeared. Men. Open fire. Dom gave the order. I really need to stop calling him that. His lack of hesitation showed he had some brains. After all, I am fucking dangerous. I opened my mouth and produced a sonic blast at them. The concussive waves of sound threw them all back out into the hallway and shattered the doors into wooden chips. The wall surrounding the door had small cracks running up it as well. The crowd below started panicking and running away. Meanwhile, I turned towards Galil and saw the wide-eyed look on his face. What are you? The reply came fast. Special. Chapter 30, An Unexpected Meeting Part 4. Aden's Point of View. Now. I punctuated my statement by stomping on his leg and breaking it. Galil groaned in pain but otherwise kept silent. I felt a brief surge of respect for his resilience before remembering what he was. I won't ask you again. What's in the goblet? Clearly, I wasn't going to get through to him. Centuries had no doubt tempered his will to the level where a little pain just wouldn't cut it. That said, I wasn't worried about his retaliation through the explosion of hellfire from before because of how close he would be. If he activated the spell or whatever it was, even he would be blasted to Kingdom Come. So it was time to change tactics. I crouched next to him and brought my mouth close to his ears. I wonder what would happen if I informed Zatara of the presence of a demon who's been the cause of countless deaths and mayhem across history. Galil's eyes widened in panic. No, you can't. I smiled and continued. Zatara likes to stack the odds in his favor, so he would most likely come prepared and with some super backup. The League kind. I dug my fingers onto his shoulders and stared at him even more intensely. You would lose the fight. No question about it. And that would result in you getting deported back to hell, and from your earlier words, that's worse than a death sentence. Galil was shivering non-stop by then. Okay. I'll tell you. He stammered out, the image of the defiant and stubborn demon from earlier completely gone. The goblet contains refined metahuman essence. I use the devices outfitted on both ends of the ring to detect metas and then afterwards, kill and drain them of their vitality. I sucked in a deep breath. So, it wasn't to make the matches fair. It was a means to hunt down ability wielders. Why? Why target them specifically? I asked him the question, already suspecting what he would say. Quality. Human life force is not as potent as other races. That changes when the meta gene is introduced. Think of it as an elevator straight to the top floors. He smiled nastily. And I'm usually there to welcome them like a good host. My hand applied pressure to his clavicle and snapped it. Galil shouted at the unexpected pain. He spared me a hate-filled gaze that I ignored. You deserved that and you know it. I commented on the broken clavicle. Next question, How many metahumans have you killed so far? He clenched his jaw, refusing to talk. You know, I have Zatara on speed dial. He looked at me skeptically, making me laugh. Okay, that's a lie. But trust me, getting him here is a simple matter of making a single call. You wanna try me? Galil huffed in frustration. Fine. Metahumans are rare. But occasionally one or two find their way to me. I cannot tell you the correct number, but it's less than 5. Less than 5, my black ass. Galil was a demon. A demon's whole shtick was lying. Ipso facto Galil was lying to me. Trying to downplay it. Last question. What will happen if I drink it? By now, almost everyone had cleared out, but I could feel that something wasn't quite right. Where were Galil's men? I had blown back Dumb and the group from earlier, but I knew that none of them had truly died. So what was the hold-up? I have to finish this quickly, get the money and skedaddle. A glint of interest appeared on Galil's face as he ran a curious eye around my form. To be completely honest, I don't know. The ones who have gone through the process before you awakened meta genes, but their powers were either weak or incompatible with their bodies. So I changed things up a little and introduced something else into the mix. So this is not like the previous versions. It's untested. I narrowed my eyes at that. That sounds familiar. I've only had one successful meta with a useful ability and their power. At this point his smile was back. Needs to be handled with delicate care. After all, it is oh so useful. I narrowed my eyes. The meta gene scanning devices. The one who made them is that meta, isn't it? Probably someone with a technology intuitive ability. They were made shoddily, taking inspiration from LexCorp, Wayne and many other companies involved with superhuman response, support and detainment tech. Galil's look of shock was priceless. I felt a brief surge of pride course through me at the lucky guess. It was a far-fetched guess, but Galil struck me as the kind of demon, who would use every advantage he got. So based on that fact alone, of course he would see the potential of someone with the ability to mish-mash tech and create useful devices from poor materials. How? How do you know that? Did Ras Al Ghul send you? That bastard. We had a deal. At the name drop, everything clicked. Ras Al Ghul was part of the Light. The Light had access to Cobra Venom and the original blockbuster formula. I spared a look at the goblet once more. Galil had said that this batch of meta essence was different from the usual one. It wouldn't be a stretch to think that he could have mixed it with Cobra Venom or blockbuster. I mean, the Light had done it already. Who says they wouldn't do so again? That said, I wasn't going to use it now. That would be dumb and pointless despite having access to an ability that ensured nothing would change with my body. More study needed to be done on the, what should I call it? Oh yeah, how about the meta trigger? It's simple and precise. I looked around for a container of sorts and my eyes landed on an empty whiskey bottle. Not the ideal container, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I turned my attention back to Galil, who was still furious about Ras Al Ghul's supposed betrayal. I wasn't going to correct him though. Villains going at each other's throat was fine with me. What I was more interested in was the meta Galil had commissioned to build the metahuman scanning devices. Where are you keeping them? The meta who made those devices. Tell me, and maybe, just maybe, we can renegotiate on whether I'll let you go or not. Fuck you. Here we go again. General point of view. Maze contemplated on following after Lucifer as he made his way towards the front door of the establishment, but decided not to. She was more comfortable in the darkness. Millennia spent being the boogeyman to the sinners in hell had ensured that the shadows were a favorite place. Not because of the concealment factor, but because of the philosophical nature of it all. People fear what they don't know. That fear was deliciously satisfying when drawn out and intensified through a touch of mystery and suspense. With that, she used the back door to infiltrate. unseen and unheard except for the guard propped up on the wall with a slit throat. Lucifer never said anything about killing a single human. He'd said to keep their steps light and influence minimal. At least until they had their bearings right. To be honest, Maze didn't see much point in all of this. If you ask her, whatever the boss was after on Earth, she was skeptical he would find it here. The city was sufficiently dark, but not to the level of a few others. Plus the superpowered community would also be a problem if they crossed paths with them. Maze, however, was confident in Lucifer. He was the damned devil, for crying out loud. His power was unfathomable. It didn't matter if he was currently suppressed to just above human in terms of strength. Maze's eyes lit up in a little interest as throngs of people started making their way outside the room while panicking. She pushed through the crowd and found herself before a cage that had patches of blood on the floor. Her eyes quickly ignored that to watch a contingent of guards ran up the staircase towards the V.I.P section. Galil. She muttered in excitement. I'll have to thin out the herd before he and I have a long overdue family reunion, she thought to herself and took a leap. Using her superhuman agility, Maze grabbed the frame of the staircase and hoisted herself up. She landed halfway to the top of the stairs and started going up. Suddenly, the foundations of the rooms shook following a huge explosion of sound. Maze stepped back just as the guards from earlier were blown back out of the room at the end of the hallway. She narrowed her eyes at the groaning men and stepped over them, knocking out those who were about to get up. Her hand shot out to block a stone-like limb from one of the men with her dagger. There was a loud ting. Sound following the clash, and Maze flipped backwards to study her opponent. The man did not look injured despite the massive attack from before. His right hand grabbed the remains of his tight t-shirt and shredded it from his upper body. Are you with that guy? Answer me, bitch. He shouted and got mad when Maze cocked her head to the side in puzzlement. Fine. Don't talk, I like it that way. He licked his lips while running his perverted eyes down her body. Maze sneered. He would pay for that disgusting look. His skin turned to stone to resemble the hand he had used to block Maze's dagger with. The man stepped forward with a cry and threw a punch. Maze ducked under his arms and snaked her way up his body. Her legs locked around his neck in a tight grip. Maze twirled her two daggers and then dug them through her opponent's eyes. The man staggered with a shout of pain and knelt on the ground while spasming. Maze pushed them in deeper, and a second later, the man's dead body fell onto the ground. Maze didn't spare a look at him and simply turned to stare at dozen more guards who had surrounded her. The elevator from the main floor of the nightclub opened, revealing Lucifer. Getting inside had been a breeze. He had even taken the time to tour the place. Lucifer was thinking of turning this underground section into a cellar. However, he didn't see a point in changing the business. From what he had seen, the nightclub was successful. What he would change, however, was the name. He was thinking of calling it Lux. The sound of battle pulled him out of his thoughts. He smiled in amusement at the scene of Maze being surrounded by over a dozen of Galil's men. Someone else would be worried for her, but he knew that the ones at a disadvantage were the lackeys. Looks like she is enjoying herself. This marks the end of Part 9 of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.